Make sure you don't miss a thing. Go to starzology.com/newsletter and sign up.
Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Arwen O'Neill, and today I have a special guest. I will be interviewing Cardsy B. She is an astrologer, tarot card reader, and author based in New York City. Please join me in welcoming Cardsy B. Hello, thanks so much for joining me, Cardsy B. Shall I call you Cardsy B? Is that...
Yeah, so my full name's Rebecca Simzak, but yes, all of my tarot deck, my book, my podcast is all under Cardsy B, which was a nickname given by a friend, and then it just kind of stuck. So
I love how that happens.
Yeah, it's like my tarot name.
A bit the same. It started out with like an advice column I did like back in the late 90s, and now I'm still Ms. Pink all these years later. So
I love that.
Thank you. Well, let's get started talking. Let's dive right into what are your big three: sun, moon, and rising sign. Let's start with that.
Yeah, so my sun is Sagittarius, moon Libra, and Aries rising.
Amazing. I love that. I'm a double Virgo with Scorpio rising. So.
Oh my God, that's amazing. My mom is Virgo, my dad is Scorpio, and I have a lot of Virgos in my life in like all different placements. So
I love it. Well, my mother is a Sagittarius, and I am surrounded by Sagittarians. I need the fiery energy because I've got no fire in my chart except for Neptune, which is like, what?
Yeah, Sag and Virgo, I feel like is a really good combination.
I think so. It's that square that gets things done.
Totally.
So for our listeners who are new to you, how would you describe what you do? I mean, you do a lot.
Yeah. So, I always say for people that are Harry Potter's fans, I kind of majored in tarot and then as a result had like a back end minor into astrology. So because in the tarot, all 78 cards have a planetary or astrological ruling. That's kind of how I learned astrology. And as a young kid, because I learned to read tarot, I was self-taught at like 10, 11 years old. And then I started buying all these astrology books of like, oh, what are these like, astrological rulings? What do they mean? So that's kind of how I learned astrology, but definitely in my sessions, both come up. I'm known a lot for reading timelines and with numerology and astrology in the cards. And I do one-on-one sessions. I am the wellness witch in residence at the Algonquin Hotel in Manhattan. I am the author of the book, The Saturn Diaries, and I have two tarot decks, one that's already out on the market, Badass Bitches Tarot, that is all iconic women as the 78 cards. And then my second deck, Hex in the City, that's all New York witches, is coming out in early 27.
Amazing. There is just so much to unpack there. I mean, first of all, Badass Bitch is amazing. I've got my Badass Goddesses art theme. So this is all working out very well. I'm actually intrigued by your connection with Saturn. What made you want to focus in on Saturn for that?
Yes. So I had a really brutal Saturn return. So I'm sure all of your listeners are also like very astrologically inclined and well versed. But for those who don't know, we have when Saturn returns to the place we were born every 27 to like 30, 31 years. That was a really intense time in my life. So I always say Saturn is kind of like the mean teacher or like mean professor of the planetary system, where we learn a lot of powerful lessons through Saturn, but it's not always easy. And as a Sagittarius, Aries rising with like so much Sag in my chart, I don't really like the discipline often of Saturn, especially at that point in my life when I was, late 20s. And at that point, my best friend passed away. My kind of big, global VP creative director job at Playboy in the fashion industry was pulled away. And then shortly after that, my ex asked for a divorce. So it was kind of all these things that were ego identifiers of like, this is who I am. This is what makes me worthy, were pulled out in my first Saturn return. And though it was really challenging, it also brought me back home to really the truth of who I am, which a big part of that is tarot and astrology as healing tools for myself and also healing tools that I now am able to use for others. So I'm really grateful for that time. It was definitely not fun and not easy. But the reason I call my book the Saturn Diaries is it's a modern day grimoire, because it's half memoir, half spell book of things that I experienced in that time that brought me into this work now, that kind of took me from like fashion bitch to wellness witch in the work that I'm doing now.
That's amazing. And where is your Saturn placed? So we all have
Scorpio.
Good Lord. Yeah,
Yeah.
that all tracks perfectly, right? I mean, mine's in Cancer, and my Saturn return was all about losing my job and then being evicted because I couldn't pay my rent,
Oh
which
my
is,
gosh.
yeah. So, like the terror of homelessness, which of course
Yes.
was never actually on the table because I had a partner at the time who I'm still with, but that terror of like, oh my God, they're removing my shell.
Yeah. And
It
in
never goes
sport,
away,
oh,
you know?
100%. And I think that like when you hit close to that, there's the beauty in knowing that you survived it, but it also
Yeah.
can be very triggering of root chakra issues moving forward. Because similarly, I had all the eviction notices. I was single at that time and at the worst part living in like 300 square foot apartment with rats and cockroaches, like absolute squalor. And nobody knew that because I had my fancy fashion life before. So that's
Right.
what was always like on Instagram and had been in the media before. So no one knew how terrible it was. And even though I'm so grateful that I was able to completely rebuild my life and create a new business, I still have like moments when we had that really intense time in Pisces of this year of like where kind of old fears were coming up for a lot of us of like the
Yeah.
smallest things triggering that, which I'm sure you having a similar experience. It's like, oh my God, am I going to lose everything again? Yeah.
Every time I get an email from our landlords, like, even though
Yes.
we have great relationships now, I'm just like, if anyone knocks on the door ever, because we're in a high rise, it's like, why are they knocking?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I totally, completely
Going to
understand that.
jail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so how did you move from, as you say, to the wellness witch? How does that play out? Did you start consulting right away, or was it more going into publishing first? Like, how was
So
that
yeah, it
journey?
was completely unplanned. So basically, my Saturn return was really brutal, and I truly lost all my money. At the lowest point, I was living with rats and cockroaches and multiple eviction notices, and had like $237 in my bank account. So I was taking any jobs I could get, like the lowest point, which is like in the Saturn Diaries. It's kind of a lot of people say it's like a beach read. They can read it in a weekend. It's very like Sex in the City, but true stories in terms of written through dialogue and characters that were in my life. And this story is in the Saturn Diaries. One of the jobs I took off Craigslist at the time was squashing foot fetish wine. So, like grapes in this weird warehouse on the West Side Highway. So, I was just taking anything I could get, like to try to just rebuild my bank account and rebuild my life. And I was pulling one tarot card a day just for myself because it had
Right.
been something that I loved since I was little, but never thought was going to be a career. And as I was doing that to kind of just like, what is, God, source, the universe need me to know to pull through this time, I started reading for a couple friends that knew that I did it and knew that I was like really into tarot and astrology. And it started to spread of like, oh, she's predicting really accurate things of predicting pregnancies or these deals closing from like former fashion colleagues. And then I started to read in some small places in the city, just like doing like, little pop-up readings and getting paid hourly for that. And then I hand illustrated my first tarot deck, the one that's all like iconic women. So it's like you can see like the world cards inspired by Betty White, like
Oh,
Hierophant is Oprah, like kind of like teacher of like lessons and like super soul lessons.
totally.
So I was hand illustrating those because I illustrated in my fashion career just to teach with because I was getting more and more like people coming for readings and teaching in small groups. And then that kind of took off. And this deck came out in 2018. I think my podcast Hex in the City launched in 2019. And it was just kind of like very natural and organic momentum. But I'm so grateful that I get to do this full time now. But I didn't plan for it. It was just kind of as I was taking other freelance and consulting jobs, and then eventually was able to kind of cut back that security blanket of other jobs I was doing and fully focus on this for the past 7 years.
That's amazing. What a great
Thank you
journey.
so Yeah, yeah, I'm so grateful. I love it's like I still every day I'm so grateful that I get to do this like full time and this is my career path. I'm so grateful.
Was there one moment where you realized, like, okay, I'm actually doing this. This is my new life now?
Yeah,
Was there one?
I feel like I think it was like 2019, 2020 when I had one small contract that was not because I did literally cut it back like a security blanket. Like I had multiple clients in the fashion industry, then it was down to one larger client and like a small, and I kept cutting that back of like, oh, like less days a week or less projects that I'm on until it was one very small account and project. And I remember just saying like, guys, I don't think I can continue once the contract was up. up, and it was scary but freeing at the same
Yeah.
time. I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually a full-time witch. And it was funny because in that corporate job that I was consulting in, they did like a big company-wide meeting at one point, and everyone had to say like what their, the cheesy icebreakers of like, what would your job be if it wasn't what you do? And then
Right.
all of the brown-nosing people were like, exactly what my job is. It's my dream job. And then there were like the dudes that were like, I would be playing for the Yankees. And then I was like, I would be a chief witch officer. And everyone thought that was hilarious. And then like a year later, that's what my title is.
I
I was
love
like,
that.
mic drop. Yeah. So it was that moment of cutting back the final, like almost like necessary day job piece. And I was like, wow, I'm really doing this full time. And it was from that point on, then my book came out in 2023, was published in 23. And then I got the residency with the Algonquin Hotel, which has now been ongoing for the past 2 years. So yeah, it was definitely one of those like following the universe's invitation to do this. More came through as a result of that.
That's fantastic and very inspiring for any aspiring astrologers or people who are trying to juggle that passion and their day job and wondering, could this ever actually be my actual hustle, not just the side hustle?
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I
Yeah.
think now more than ever, it's definitely much more received and in demand. And as a result of that, I literally right before this podcast had lunch with a friend of mine, and she's with like a major like major international gym and spa that they employ her to do hypnotherapy and Akashic records and things that you would never think of like being a part of a gym and spa business.
Right.
So I think that the world is really changing in terms of the desire and connection to this work, which is, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's great for anybody who's stepping into this and wants to make this their full-time job.
It's a great time to be alive and being a little bit alternative and a little bit spiritual and whatever, kind of occult adjacent, I guess. How
Yeah.
did you get into podcasting?
So that was something that I wanted to be able to share how I teach, because when I was in sessions, people would always say, oh, you break this down in terms of the tarot and astrology, and how, like, again, how all of the tarot cards have astrological rulings. So Three of Wands is Sun and Aries. So it kind of is that like LFG, like make the leap, like take the initiative. And they were saying like, I would love if you had like courses with this. And I did do some small courses in New York, but I decided I was like, if I just do an energy update every week of what's coming astrologically and what's coming through the cards, that's a great way to help educate people in that are either starting to learn tarot and astrology or want to dive more in. And then it just kind of took off from there.
That's awesome. Are there any episodes that really stick out for you that are kind of like your favorite episodes or favorite
Um,
interviews you've done with people?
Yeah, I really love, because I do have guests on Hex in the City, and I really love when I get to have guests, and it's a range of different like authors and content creators and people in the like tarot, astrology, metaphysical space. And I got to interview Mary K. Greer, who's like, I'm just a big fan of her work because she is one of the people that I studied like tarot from, and she wrote a book on tarot constellations, which is kind of the correlation between numerology
Yeah.
and tarot. And so I was like, oh my gosh, such a fangirl. And a lot of tarot readers and practitioners kind of look at her as like the grand dame of tarot because she's been doing it forever and is like one of our leaders.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of my very favorite episodes, because just the fact that she came on and, was also like a fan of like my deck and my work. I was like, oh, I've worked so hard to
Oh my
be able
gosh.
to, yeah, to get here. So it was one of those full circle moments. And I just really admire and respect what she's brought to the industry. So that's probably one of my favorites. But yeah, I feel like I just have a lot of fun with it because I share the energy update for the week ahead, but then sometimes get to have really amazing conversations with guests as well.
Absolutely. Let's pull it back to astrology a little bit for our listeners who are coming to this from an astrology perspective. And let's just start with your chart. Do you have a favorite aspect in your chart or one that you think says the most about you?
The one that says the most, that's a good question. I actually, I don't know. I feel like the fact just in general that I have like so much fire, like so many planets in Sagittarius in general, that I'm very much a card carrying Sagittarius, but I don't know that I can't off the top of my head think of one aspect that defines. Yeah.
Card carrying, no pun intended. Love that.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, okay. Do you have a favorite tarot card or one that maybe you feel is misunderstood? Aside from the death card, obviously.
Yeah, it's funny that you were just talking about like all the Sagittarius placements. I love
Yeah.
King of Wands because
Hmm.
it's the King of Fire, and so it's, you know, representative of Sagittarius, Leo, and Aries placements, and I have a lot of those. So I like narcissistically in my first deck, that's the card I made myself because I always say like the great side of King of Wands is it's like creator energy. It's the like let's get things done, let's light the fires. And the shadow aspect or the reversal is the shadow aspect of a lot of like Sagittarius, Leo, and Aries of impatience. I always say it's very ready, fire, aim versus ready, aim, fire. And that can be
Amazing.
me in my impatience. So I like King of Wands as the most representative of like me and my astrological chart.
Love that. That's very cool. Of course, the deck that I designed, I made myself the High Priestess. So yeah.
Oh, love. Yes. Yeah, totally. That suits you. Yes.
I have a weird New York story with that, and I've not lived there, but it has been my favorite place to visit I mean, probably since childhood because I used to read a lot of X-Men comics and they were based in New York. So I was like, I want to live in New York ever since I was like 12. But it was in 2000 that I was starting to create my own deck, and I created the High Priestess card with I wanted to have like a lightning bolt in the background with like two towers, and I was just searching online for pictures of towers being struck by lightning, and I found a picture of the actual World Trade Center towers, which of course I didn't really think about what they were at the time. It was just like, oh, these are amazing buildings. I know they're in New York, so I have those behind me in the tarot card that I designed in like early 2000, like March 2001. And then I was taken offline because my laptop died, and I was able to sort of get all of my cards back in September, after September 11th. And I found that card in the folder with all the things I had designed earlier that year. And I just got chills and was like, oh my God, this is
Oh my gosh.
insane. And then, of course,
Wow.
the tower card I designed, based on the actual towers after that. But yeah, so it all kind of came together, and it was like,
Wow,
wow,
that's crazy.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
my little collage deck that's it's a little more collage than my own art, so it's not marketable, but it's still my favorite deck.
Very cool. Yeah, I think there's something that comes with creating your own deck that you connect with it in an even deeper
Totally.
way. Because it's like I had read for a long time and thought that I was like, oh, I know, the 78 cards inside and out, but like designing and like illustrating my own or collaging your own,
Yeah.
it takes you into deeper levels of understanding what each card represents because there are so many layers with the astrology and the numerology and there's Kabbalistic tie-ins and
Yeah.
the original archetype if you're going by like the Smith Rider-Waite deck. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I had so many different reference points of like all these different decks that I kind of had collected or collected digitally rather, and then all of the descriptions, and it was like it was crossing it off the list. I had a grid of like, okay, I've got that one, I've got that one, and it took like a year and a half. But I mean, you've designed decks before. What was your process?
Yeah, the first one that I hand illustrated, I was very much like you. Like I had my list, but I didn't go in order. I
Oh
kind of was
no.
like what I felt, yeah, like what I felt called to
Yeah.
illustrate in that given time in my life, things that were coming up thematically. I'm like, I'm gonna dive into this. So the one I illustrated, the illustration piece probably took like 6 months, and then there was like the like, writing and like formatting the guidebook. And then the deck that I'm doing now, I think I started it like that might have been closer to a year, maybe 9 months of I have an illustrator. This one, it's so lovely because I have a really talented illustrator, Nick Lawyer, working with me on this. And so it's more of the art direction and we kind of collaborate on
Oh,
like what the
nice.
iconography that's going to be in each card. And then I wrote the guidebook, obviously, but that probably was about 9 months from like start to finish. And now it's with the publisher. So it's going to come out in early 27.
Amazing. Well, we'll have to link to all of these things for you, obviously.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by New Moon Wishing, a self-care guidebook for wishful thinkers. Please see the link in the show notes.
So what's coming up next for you? What are you excited about?
Yeah, so I'm really excited just moving into like the rest of the month of April, because I think March was really challenging with the eclipses, the equinox, the Mercury retrograde in Pisces, and it really was, I thought like some of the most challenging cosmic transits on astrology that we've seen in March since 2020. So I
Yeah.
was seeing a lot of my one-on-one clients going through the ringer. So I am like excited about things that are coming in April in general. So I have a few specific offerings for that. Like one that's an astrological, like since Aries is the astrological new year,
Yeah.
astrological new year's reset reading, that's just available throughout the month of April. And then a deep dive into intuition session. That's how we kind of receive our information, whether it's through hearing, clear audience, seeing, clairvoyance, and different exercises that we tap into in that session to see how we can heighten our intuition and how we best receive kind of signs, synchronicities, etc. So those are new for this month. And then beyond that, just continuing with the Hex in the City podcast. And if you're in New York, come see me at the Algonquin Hotel for a one-on-one in-person session. And I do Zoom sessions for clients all over the world. So that's always available too.
Amazing. I think we should talk a little bit, because I know that you do weekly episodes about state of the world a little bit, mostly focused on like what can you do with this energy. But
Right.
the state of the world is pretty crazy right now, and you have touched on that a bit. And what should we carry forward with all this Aries energy, the Neptune Saturn conjunction right on the Aries point? I mean, people are feeling overwhelmed and terrified.
Yeah, and understandably so. And the thing I think with that is even if we do to some degree like filter it out, it's going to come up in our own micro individual levels. Because I'm somebody personally, like, I don't watch the news. I find a lot of it very fear mongering and a lot of social
Yeah.
media like clickbait, fear inducing. But I find that I always say, like, I find out what I need to know from clients and friends of what's happening in the world. But even with that, even if we are quite like filtered, we're going to feel it because we're meant to purge and move through a lot of this darkness right now. So with that, I always say like focusing on the things that are coming up and allowing yourself to feel them. Because I had this one client saying, I've been so good about like not exposing myself to things that are like unnecessarily like, fear inducing, but I'm still feeling this. And I was like, well, we think about the collective as like, I live in Manhattan. So let's say it's an apartment with very thin walls and everyone has horror movies on. And you're like, I'm just trying to meditate to Louise Hay. You're still going to be impacted by like the screaming noises and like the volume of every person around you watching horror movies. So because of that, if it does bring up something in you of feelings of scarcity, feelings of, lack of root chakra security in some way, feelings of solitude or loneliness, I think we are meant to feel them and sit with them, but it's just not necessarily attaching or like enmeshing and moving into that feeling. So we don't have to bypass or shame ourselves or like, oh, only think happy thoughts, but like, okay, what is coming up right now? And can I allow this to come up and through me? Because in doing that, we're helping the collective heal and move through these things.
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, do we want to draw one card for the next? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look. Okay. Always shuffle and then pull what's coming up. Okay. Oh, that's so interesting. We just talked about that too. So I have Four of Swords reverse,
Ooh.
and in the upright, it is ruled by Jupiter in Libra, which is kind of finding that Jupiter expansion through balance and recalibration. So with the reversal, I feel like we may be tested with exactly what we were talking about, like a lot of outside noise. And when I say outside, that can be like other people, things we're seeing in social media, things that are happening on the world stage. But I also think it can be our past self of like, oh my goodness, like, is this going to happen again? Is like looking at something and trying to, our ego human mind make sense of what I've experienced in the past. So really in Four of Swords reverse, I think that, and I would love your take on this too, because you also read tarot, but with that kind of like the answer being Jupiter and Libra, like where can we come back to calibration and where can we kind of come home to ourselves and tune out or like filter out some of the things that are not necessary in the now moment.
Yeah. We're pattern recognizing creatures. We're tool makers, but we're also pattern recognizing. And that can be a great thing up to a point. And then past a point, it can dip into schizophrenia and paranoia and recognizing too many patterns and too many similarities and feeling trapped in cycles. And part of astrology and tarot and any kind of work where we are psychologically engaging with other people is about recognizing patterns, but it's also about how do we make it. It's not a circle, it's a spiral. We're moving upwards with every cycle, and we're learning things and we're taking things away from the past. So it's about like recognizing that past and going, okay, I see that I've been there before, but what can I take away and move forward and upward and help others. I mean, that's I think the thing, especially that comes out of a Saturn return or any kind of like dark night of the soul. And we can help others and become more empathetic and like, not just like, oh, thank God I've gotten past that. It's not me anymore, but like, recognizing that in others and knowing when you can reach out and help others because you've actually been there.
I love that. And I think that's definitely what you do with your work and with your podcast. And I think that's one of the things to remember when it feels like we're in the eye of the storm. Of a lot of times we may individually feel like we're going through like the battlefield on the front lines, but it's often so that we can help those that are going to go through that battle after us, because we then have different perspectives and lenses and tools that we can, give to and provide to others that may be moving through it at a later date.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I could talk to you forever, and I would love to actually talk to you again.
Yes.
Let's schedule another call in like 6 months or so. I'm going to be launching my own podcast sometime this year. Don't know when yet, but we should definitely connect again. Where can people find you? What do you want people to know about you and what you're sharing with the world right now?
Yeah, if everything, it's really easy. If you remember Cardsy, Cardsy. It's at Cardsy on Instagram is my main platform. I'm on all social media, but that's the one where I'm the most active and where you can kind of get the daily energy updates and tarot reads. And my website's cardsyb.com, which all my offerings are available. So yeah, I would just say anyone that's tapping more into their intuition and is drawn to tarot and astrology as tools to do so. I have a lot of free content on Instagram and in my newsletters, and then one-on-one sessions depending on what you're moving through and working through.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. This was lovely. Yeah, I'd love to have you on Hex in the City as well. So let's set something up for the future.
That sounds awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, my dear. Well, have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Take care. Bye. And thank you, dear listeners, for getting through this podcast. If you are not subscribed, please make sure that you are subscribed to our newsletter. You can get that at starzology.com/newsletter. Please also make sure you're following me on Substack. You can find me at www.mspink.net. And I am sending out my weekly newsletter every Saturday. The Starzology newsletter comes out every Sunday, as does the podcast. And please make sure to like and subscribe and leave us a positive review. We love the 5-star reviews. They really help the algorithm. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone who you think would find it valuable. We love to hear your feedback, and we would love to hear from you. If you would like to be on the podcast as a future guest, please reach out through the Starzology website. Thanks so much again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there, or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.